Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today we're going to try and tackle a topic that's been in and out of focus for decades all over the world: the use of cannabis, both medically and recreationally. Joining us to discuss is Senior Medical Advisor to the Israeli Health Ministry and Senior Consultant in the field of medical cannabis, Dr. Michael Do, and Specialist in Psychiatry and Pharmacology, Dr. Ben Amit, who also serves, by the way, as the Director of the Cannabis Clinic at the Reut Rehabilitation Center of Tel Aviv University. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being with us today. Now,
thanks for having us.
All right, now this issue has come to the forefront in Israel again with the introduction of two very similar bills by Likud MK Sharren Haskel and Blue and White MK Ram Shefa to essentially legalize and regulate the use of cannabis in Israel. The bills were advanced towards first reading in June of this year, but they have yet to see their first Knesset votes, in part because of the coronavirus. But before we get into the details of the bill, I actually want to just get to you, Dr. Amit. You know, how does cannabis affect the user? What happens when somebody ingests cannabis, be that by smoking or taking oil or eating?
Well, it's pretty common. Like, everybody knows the general things that happen when somebody ingests cannabis. It's a very popular drug. So basically, you have the mental effects, which is a sense of euphoria, a decrease in concentration and judgment to a certain extent, a certain like somnolence, sedation, increased appetite. Overall, what is commonly referred to as the common, well-known characteristics of cannabis use. These are the main ones.
All right, and so, you know, with Haskel's bill, it would basically decriminalize possession of up to 50 grams for personal use, while Shefa's bill goes even further. It actually completely legalizes the purchase for adults of up to 15 grams for personal use and from dedicated shops. You know, what are your reactions to this bill, Dr. Do?
Let me separate two issues which are unfortunately mixed together in this subject. One issue is the medical usage of cannabis. Then, of course, we are biased. We are really great promoters of this usage. It helps a lot of diseases. Maybe we should have a little time to speak about. At that point, 50 grams is a little bit too much from my point of view, but it doesn't matter. That is the amount that the physician should adjust to his patient each time. The second issue is the recreational use of cannabis. And that is another issue which should be separated from the medical issue and dealt differentially. It should be decided by social authorities, the parliament, the government, maybe even the highest court. It is not up to the physicians to decide about social issues. Each time I presented this point of view in the parliament, being the representative of the Minister of Health, which I'm not anymore, I quit. And they used to ask me, so what do you think about the recreational usage? And I said repeatedly, please, it is not a medical issue. But if you insist on medical answer, I can tell you one thing. You, as a society, decided that the alcohol is permitted for social usage. So you have the price of it. As the Americans say, there are no free lunches. And the payment, the price of the recreational usage of alcohol are road accidents, liver problems, alcoholism. You as a society decided that nicotine, smoking is allowed. So you pay the social price with lung problems, cancer, blood vessel problems, but you decided it's allowed and that you are ready to pay this price. I can assure you one thing. The cannabis is not a free lunch also. It will have a social price, but it will be less than the price we have to pay for the permit of usage of alcohol or nicotine. What will be the price of usage of cannabis for social purposes? those people who have previous mental conditions, what we used to call predisposition, disposition. 10% of those individuals will finish in hospitalization. So it is a price which we should know, and then the parliament or any social body should decide, is it worth it or not? We are speaking only as physicians, and the physicians' results, the physicians' benefits for the patients are tremendous.
Well, so you mentioned now a few different things, including road accidents and certain dependency issues, perhaps, as well as risks to people with predispositions. Although there are several case studies that we see both in Portugal, which actually decriminalized the use of all drugs and shifted the focus onto treatment, with Colorado and several other states in the United States that have now shifted to decriminalization, if not legalization. And those risks haven't really come to bear. But Dr. Amit, what's your take on the use of recreational cannabis?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I'm in very high concurrence with Dr. Dor. But maybe the kind of the take-home message is a little different. So I agree that this issue of legalization is a very broad issue, and it's beyond the scope of us as doctors. We can see our angle. People from the world of finance will see a different angle about cannabis, and the legal people a different angle, etc. So I don't know if we are the best experts on legalization in general, but I agree it carries a price, which is, as you put, motor vehicle accidents, dependence and addiction issues, and others. And we have to decide if we want to pay this price like we do in alcohol and nicotine or not. I think that considering that there is some degree of damage, of price you pay, then I think the relevant question is how to avoid this price. Is the way, so I believe that if everyone will use cannabis all day long, it will be deleterious. It will be a bad consequence. I think the key question is, how do you go about this? Do you use the law, or do you use other methods? What is the proportion of both of law versus education? If you take, you mentioned the example of Portugal, which is a very, very interesting example, as they basically legalized everything.
They saw a net decrease in drug use across the board.
Yeah, they used to have a huge, it's a great case study, because they used to have a huge heroin problem. And they used a method which is part of the risk reduction method approach, okay, which I am a big supporter of. It's saying, okay, banning drugs has not, it did some, it had some success, but not a complete success. So maybe we should try to focus on reducing the harm caused by drug use, and not just the exposure to drug, because we see that, as we see in the United States, the approximate expenditure on the war against drugs and on purchasing drugs is about the same amounts of money.
There needs to be a shift. There needs to be a shift from the criminalization and the policing to treatment exactly.
This is my view. There should be a shift in towards making people responsible for their decision and so forth.
But now I want to shift again to the medical side. Dr. Doe, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but and again you admitted, of course, that there are known medical benefits to using cannabis medicinally, although within the health ministry there seems to still be this sort of cognitive dissonance when it comes to medical cannabis, because legally speaking, on the books, the health ministry website still says that it's a dangerous drug, literally, I'm quoting, and that it has nearly no medical use, and yet in the same sentence it says, but there is some evidence to support it. And then, of course, there's the Medical Cannabis Agency. You know, I want to play a clip actually really quick that sort of exemplifies this dissonance. Take a look.
אני רוצה ניסיון עכשיו, ניסוי קליני, יש פה 10 כדורים.
לא, אדוני.
לא, סליחה, זה כדורים, נכון, זה סמים. סליחה, אבל במקרה יש לי שמן, אבידקל 30% של תיקון עולם, זה סם מסוכן, כתוב עליו, זה לא כתוב עליו. ברוך אתה, אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. הופה! זה גם פג תוקף, חברים. רגע, תביאו צבא עוד 10 גרם, חברים.
הישיבה נעולה.
20 גרם קנאביס, אבידקל 30 גרם, עכשיו בוא נראה מה יקרה לי עם הסם המסוכן!
Dr. Dor, you know, I want to give you a chance to respond to this now. You know, where is the line drawn exactly?
Where is the line? The line, from my point of view, is professional. Physicians, and we have thousands of physicians that already researching cannabis, giving it to patients. The physicians are those that should decide which cannabis to give, because as you know, there are hundreds of strains to which disease and to which patients. Then the second issue is, of course, issue of quality, because we need to grow the cannabis under quality control restrictions and severe, because if you give cannabis to oncology patient who has no resistance, you cannot give him something with chemicals or fungi. So the second thing is quality issue. Then is the supply issue. I don't know what the guy was so angry. I don't know where it was told. I had my share of demonstrations in the front of my house. Some of them were really sick patients that needed help, and I did my best to help them. Some of them were people that were less interested in health, and this is, as I said, not my jurisdiction. So if you want to ask something more specific, but we need to hear the professionals and to work according. Our goal is to make the cannabis from forbidden substance into potent medication. We call this process medicalization of cannabis. This is not a legalization, it's entirely another field.
Dr. Amit?
Yeah, thanks. I will refer to this video. I didn't, actually I'm in this video. I haven't seen it now, but I have it on my computer. I'm in this video. I'm sitting right behind this person. I remember this event. So this guy came to the parliament, and he ingested a whole bottle of cannabis oil during the meeting.
I remember that. I was also in this meeting.
Remember that? You were also there, I think. And I think this is, first of all, this guy he's probably very, very, I had a discussion with him later. He was very frustrated by the limitations and by the regulation of medical cannabis, and he wanted to make a point that it's not dangerous. But as we started out saying, there are dangers of using cannabis. Okay, maybe not. You can't die from ingesting a portion, but you can indirectly, suffer from everything we said before: your vehicle accidents, addiction, and so forth, psychosis. So it is a drug, and it has its dangers. Is the headline "dangerous drug" not a good name? Maybe it's not a good name. Should it be rescheduled from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 2 like they did in the UK? Probably. I mean, it would be wrong to say that it has zero medical benefit, right? We are here because of the medical benefit. Mm-hmm. So I think so I would agree that removing it from Schedule 1 to a lower schedule, implying that it has some kind of benefit, would be a good idea.
All right, now,
if I may, I didn't see the movie now, but what Ben said, I remember this incident was in the parliament. I was representing the ministry at that meeting, and I don't want to elaborate because there are medical issues, but one thing, this guy wanted me to allow to give cannabis to a child, to a small girl,
cannabis
without
oil.
medical supervision. Cannabis oil, without medical supervision. And all the demonstrations and all the pressure, I wouldn't agree to give cannabis to a small child without medical supervision. So please, I don't want to talk more about it because I cannot elaborate about other issues that were involved. This is not example to not to good treatment and not to anything else.
All right, well, we're talking about in terms of evidence of the use, and there are arguments, not necessarily that you've made, but there are arguments that there is a lack of evidence medically in terms of peer-reviewed studies. Yet, you know, I did a cursory search earlier, and I found with the British Medical Journal and the American Medical Association, literally tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies, and there's an excerpt here from the British Medical Journal. It says, in fact, there is so much evidence available for so many conditions that this paper is restricted to conditions for which cannabis appears to have the most beneficial effects. It goes on to say that the risks are extremely low in a therapeutic context compared with pharmaceutical medicines. PubMed references over 20,000 published studies or reviews under the search terms cannabis and marijuana, nearly half of which were published within the last 5 years. By comparison, few pharmaceutical medicines are tested in multiple large-scale clinical trials or have thousands of years of actual experience behind them.
Look, you are preaching to the converted. Both of us, we believe that this is the right way. Those 20,000 articles and even more are not that good literature. Most of them are not double-blind good studies, but nevertheless, there is a lot of research done, and I'm very proud to say that Israel is considered to be a leading country in the research of cannabis. Some of our scientists, let me remind you about the work of Professor Dedi Meiri from the Technion, whose research about maybe it will lead to something that will be benefit for cancer treatment and many others. This is the direction. We should make research, produce the product. By the way, please don't use the word marijuana. Let's stick to cannabis, because marijuana was an ugly nickname to this in the States 100 years ago.
I agree. But yes, I was just quoting from the paper.
This is the direction. Research and treatment. Ben?
Yeah, thanks. I would reinforce what Dr. Dor said, and I would add that I agree. So, I mean, there's a unique phenomenon in cannabis, which is that there are more articles about studies than studies, all right? So you see 20,000 studies, but most of them are just a regurgitation of previous ones and reanalysis. I mean, so
what's blocking actual study being done rather than regurgitation? What's preventing?
So I would say that there are two main issues. I think, first of all, that it's very hard. I mean, for most physicians, a good paper, a good study is a randomized controlled trial, right? So you want to compare it to something else, another intervention, without the patient knowing. So you'll get the placebo effect out of the way. Now, cannabis has a very large placebo effect. So you would want the patient to not know if they're getting cannabis or something else to prove your point. But this is difficult. This is technically difficult because it's hard to come by getting cannabis without any ingredients inside. I mean, it's possible, but not very accessible. And also, a person who uses cannabis knows that they have a psychoactive effect. So unless we're talking about cannabidiol or CBD, the non-psychoactive substances.
Well, so there's one more clip that I'd like to play for you. I hope you can hear it. Which draws attention to the use of cannabis, either cannabis oil or whole plant with the psychoactive effect intended to be there for the use of post-traumatic stress disorder. This is
former IDF soldier Ido Gal Razon. It's a very famous clip. We'll play that now. מה אתם עושים לנו? אתם נותנים לנו עשרות תרופות, הנה התרופות שלכם. הנה תראו, כל דבר ודבר אתם נותנים לנו תרופה לכל סימפטום. מאשר צמח אחד שעוזר לי להירגע, שנותן לי קצת חיוך, נותן לי מצב רוח, נותן לי לישון 3 שעות בלילה וגם עושה לי תאבון. איך יכול להיות שאני פוסט טראומה בא לפה להילחם בשביל אחים שלי? סוחב אותם כי הם מדממים, כי הם במחלקות פסיכיאטריות, כי אתם נותנים להם זריקות ואוי ואבוי תצעק. אם אני הייתי צועק ככה לטיפול, אתה תהיה קשור למיטה במחלקות שאתם עובדים בהן. מה אתם עושים?
Eran,
Yes.
Eran, please stop it, please, because I was in this meeting also, and I am a physician. I cannot elaborate now what is the medical condition of the person speaking.
Well, not necessarily this person, but in terms of but the difference between using cannabis with PTSD versus other.
We have more than 2,500 PTSD patients enjoying the treatments. I don't want to speak about this guy, and sometimes we have to refuse a treatment from people not speaking about this guy because of one reason, because if they have any pre-existing psychiatric severe problems, you are not allowed to give them cannabis. And it is not easy to explain it in a parliament meeting or in the media.
I see.
But let me assure you, 2,500 Israeli people are enjoying the treatment for PTSD.
No, I mean, I'm glad you gave the example of PTSD because it's one area when we can really help people. I have over 100 patients using cannabis, and it's a very satisfying field in cannabis. We're doing our best. We're trying to be responsible.
Of course.
We have a lot of success in all fields, so it's an exciting time and an exciting field.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you very much, Dr. Dor and Dr. Amit, for joining us. And tune in next time, all of you watching at home on Insider, for more in-depth analysis on everything Israel. Also, if there's a topic that you want us to cover next, please let us know in the comment sections online. And finally, remember that for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV channels. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.